When someone no longer loves you. 6 early signs. They're emotionally pulling away. You shouldn't ignore when someone stops loving you. They don't always say it out loud. There's no slammed door, no shouting, no big announcement, just a quiet turning away. You wake up one morning and something feels different. They don't ask how you slept. They don't notice when you leave the room. And the person who once made you feel seen now looks right through you. At first, you tell yourself it's just stress, or age, or life being busy, but deep down, something inside you whispers, they're no longer here, not the way they used to be. This video isn't about blame. It's not about drama. It's about clarity, because when love begins to fade, it always leaves behind quiet clues. In the next few minutes, we're going to uncover 6 subtle but powerful signs, the kind that often show up first, long before anything is ever said. These signs are backed by relationship experts and aging psychologists, drawn from real stories, real marriages, real emotional patterns, and one of them, perhaps the most painful one, is almost always missed until it's too late. So if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or quietly forgotten in your own relationship, stay with us. Because sometimes the first step to healing is simply recognizing what your heart already knows. Sometimes the very first cracks in love don't show up in arguments or slammed doors. They show up in moments of silence, when you expect the person who loves you to speak up for you, and they don't. That silence, it speaks volumes. Linda, a 67-year-old retired nurse from Portland, had always been the quiet anchor of her family. She wasn't loud, wasn't demanding. She cooked every Sunday, the kind of woman who made space for everyone but often forgot to leave some for herself. But one afternoon, during a typical family lunch, something small but unforgettable happened. Her daughter, in a moment of frustration, snapped at her in front of everyone. "Mom, you always do this," she said, her tone sharp and dismissive. The table went still. Linda's heart panged with quiet hurt. She glanced at her husband, hoping, expecting just one word from him. A gentle defense, a look that said, "That's not okay." But he kept cutting his food, not even raising his eyes. He said nothing. That night, Linda asked him gently, "Did you hear how she spoke to me?" He replied, almost flatly, "You two always go back and forth. I didn't want to get involved." And in that pause between words, Linda felt something inside her close. Not because he said something cruel, but because he didn't say anything at all. What she experienced wasn't just a lack of support. It was emotional abandonment in its quietest form. According to psychologist Dr. Elaine Harper, long-term emotional neglect, especially when a partner fails to defend you in small but critical moments, can chip away at one's sense of self. Over time, it fosters emotional invisibility, undermines self-worth, and can lead to what she calls emotional isolation in plain sight. For older adults, this kind of invisibility can be devastating, because at this stage of life, more than ever, we want to feel seen, valued, and protected. But it's not the harsh words that wound the deepest. It's indifference, the silence that follows your pain, the quiet turning away from your need for comfort, as if your feelings are no longer worth protecting. Yet even in that ache, there is room to heal. And healing begins with honesty. If you found yourself in Linda's shoes, try reaching out from a place of truth rather than blame. You might say, "When I'm criticized and you stay silent, it makes me feel like I'm alone in this relationship. I need to know we're still on the same team." That kind of vulnerability can be scary, but it can also be a doorway. Sometimes the person you love doesn't realize how much their silence is hurting you. And sometimes it takes one honest moment to begin rewiring the connection. Small acts of reconnection, what experts call micro-connections, can help rebuild the bond. Sit beside each other without distractions. Ask gently, "What made you smile today?" Or even, "I missed hearing your voice." These may seem small, but they're threads. And when woven daily, they can slowly stitch a relationship back together. So let me ask you, have you ever sat in a room full of people, even with the person you love beside you, and still felt completely alone? Have you ever wished, just once, that someone would speak up for you, and they didn't? You're not imagining it, and you're certainly not alone. If Linda's story reminds you of a moment in your own life, I invite you to share it in the comments. Your words may be the gentle echo someone else is waiting to hear. And if this message has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who may be feeling unseen, and consider subscribing to Golden Wise Elders, where we believe that love, dignity, and belonging are not just for the young, they are timeless. Because no one should ever have to wonder, will they stand by me when I need it most? But even more painful than silence is when they stop wondering about your world altogether. When love fades, curiosity often fades with it. And that quiet loss can be one of the deepest cuts of all. Sometimes, love doesn't leave through the front door. Sometimes it just stops asking questions. At the beginning, they used to ask everything. How did you sleep? What did the doctor say? Tell me what made you smile today. They used to notice the little things, like how you take your coffee, which blanket you like when you're cold, and that small sigh you let out when something's weighing on your heart. But one day, the questions stop. They sit across from you at breakfast and scroll through their phone. You speak, and they nod, but their eyes stay on the TV. And the things that once made you feel seen start to feel like echoes in a room that no longer listens. Let me share the story of Arthur and May. They've been married for over 40 years, raised 3 kids, weathered losses, celebrated birthdays, holidays, all of it. But now in their 70s, something unspoken had crept into their mornings. May would share stories about the neighbor's garden or how her knees ached less today, hoping to start a conversation. But Arthur had become quieter, more distracted. He would nod, but never follow up. He didn't ask. He didn't remember. He didn't seem to care. One day, May stopped mid-sentence. Arthur didn't notice, and that moment felt heavier than any argument they'd ever had. According to the American Center for Geriatric Psychology, emotional disconnection in older adults often starts with a loss of curiosity. It's not just a habit, it's a sign. When your partner no longer asks about your thoughts, your day, or your well-being, it's not just forgetfulness, it's emotional distance. And over time, this quiet neglect can lead to isolation, depression, and a deep sense of not mattering, even in the relationship that once made you feel most alive. What hurts isn't the lack of questions, it's what the silence says. You no longer interest me. And for anyone who's ever loved deeply, that silence can feel like rejection wrapped in routine. But here's the hope. Connection can be rebuilt. Sometimes with just a few words and a little courage. If you're the one feeling invisible, start small. Try saying, I miss when you used to ask how I was doing. It made me feel close to you. Or simply, I want you to be curious about me again. These aren't accusations, they're invitations to come back to each other. And if you're the one who stopped asking, gently remind yourself, no matter how long you've known someone, they're always changing. There is always something new to discover if we're willing to lean in and listen. Experts call it quality time, but what it really means is undivided presence, just 15 minutes a day. No phones, no distractions, just the two of you and one open-ended question. What's on your heart today? Because the people we love don't need us to fix everything. They just need to know we still care enough to ask. Let me ask you this. When was the last time someone looked you in the eye and truly wanted to know how you were? Not just out of habit, but from the heart. If this part of the video speaks to you, if you felt forgotten in your own story, please share that moment in the comments. You're not alone. And what you share could be the reminder someone else needs to hold on. And if you believe that real love means staying curious, even after decades together, tap like, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, because being truly seen, truly heard, and truly known is not a luxury, it's love. And love at any age still begins with a simple question. How are you really? Big dash is there. And when curiosity disappears, something else tends to follow. Patience, the gentle tone, the understanding smile, they start to vanish. And in their place, a sharpness you never expected. In the early years of love, we forgive easily. We laugh off mistakes, shrug at quirks, and meet frustration with tenderness. But when love begins to fade, patience is often the first thing to go, and sometimes you don't even notice it at first. It starts with a sigh, a sharp tone, a cold glance that says, "Why are you bothering me?" over something as simple as a misplaced remote or a forgotten appointment. Let me tell you about John and Marlene. They've been together for over 35 years in a quiet suburb outside of Tampa, Florida. Marlene, now in her early 70s, had always been a bit forgetful, misplacing her reading glasses, asking twice about the same date on the calendar. It used to be a gentle inside joke. John would chuckle and say, "I think your glasses have legs of their own," before helping her look. But lately his tone has changed. When Marlene asked for help logging into her email, John snapped, "I've shown you this 5 times already. You need to write it down." No eye contact, no warmth, just irritation. Marlene didn't say anything. She just nodded quietly. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't the words. It was how far they had drifted from the way things used to be. According to the American Psychological Association, increased irritability and emotional withdrawal are often early indicators of relational fatigue, especially in long-term partnerships. For aging adults, this emotional tension doesn't just cause stress, it's linked to higher risks of depression, anxiety, and even cognitive decline when experienced chronically and without resolution. And here's the hardest part. When the person who once held space for your flaws now treats them like burdens, it makes you feel like you have become a burden. And no one, no matter their age, should ever be made to feel that way in the place they call home. But here's what's important to remember. Losing patience isn't always a sign of cruelty. Often it's a sign of disconnection, of two people growing apart, not with intention, but through the slow erosion of emotional presence. So what can we do when kindness gets replaced by criticism? Start with a pause, a deep breath. Then, instead of reacting, try reaching out. Marlene did something brave. The next evening, she waited until the house was quiet. Then she said gently, "John, when you get short with me, it makes me feel small. I know I forget things, but I also know I'm trying. I just want to feel close to you again." It wasn't an accusation. It was a bridge. Experts in geriatric relationships suggest practicing compassionate response rituals, simple habits like using physical touch when redirecting frustration or taking a 30-second break before answering when irritated. These micro adjustments help rewire the emotional rhythm between partners, especially in relationships that have settled into autopilot. If you're feeling like every small question becomes an argument, if you're walking on eggshells around someone you once felt safe with, know this: you are not asking for too much. You are asking to be treated with dignity, and you have every right to that. So let me ask you, have you noticed the tone changing? Not the words, but the way they're spoken. The sigh before they answer. The coldness that wasn't there before. If this part of the video resonates with you, I encourage you to leave a comment and share your story. Someone else may be carrying that same heaviness, and your voice could help them feel a little less alone. Tap like if you believe that patience is a form of love. Share this with someone who needs to remember that love, even after decades, still requires gentleness. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we honor the resilience, the depth, and the quiet beauty of relationships that have stood the test of time. Because kindness isn't something we outgrow. It's something we return to when we remember why we chose each other in the first place. But the clearest sign of all, it's when they stop showing up, not physically, but emotionally. The moments you used to share start disappearing. Time, once full of connection, now feels strangely empty. There's a difference between being around someone and being with them. When love is alive and well, time becomes an expression of affection. Even the quietest moments, sitting side by side in the living room, sharing a bowl of soup, watching the evening news, become tiny rituals of connection. They may seem simple, even mundane, but they're sacred. Because time, when freely given, is the clearest way to say, "You matter to me." But when someone begins to emotionally pull away, time is often the first gift they stop giving. Let me share the story of Daniel and Rose. They've been together for nearly 4 decades, living in a small town outside of Madison, Wisconsin. Rose used to love their evenings. After dinner, they'd sit on the porch with warm tea, sometimes not saying much, just watching the sun go down together. It was their ritual, their rhythm. But lately, things have changed. Daniel finishes dinner and quietly moves to the den. The TV comes on. The door closes. He doesn't ask Rose to join him. He doesn't even say goodnight some evenings, just falls asleep in the recliner, alone. At first, Rose made excuses. He's just tired. He needs some space. But deep down, something didn't feel right. It wasn't just distance, it was absence. Not physical, but emotional. He was there, but not with her. Science supports what Rose was feeling. A 2020 study from Harvard found that couples over 60 who spend less than 30 minutes of quality time per day are 48% more likely to experience emotional disconnection, dissatisfaction, and feelings of loneliness, even when living in the same home. That's nearly 1 in 2 long-term relationships silently breaking down, not from fights, but from a lack of presence. And the pain of that quiet drift is different than heartbreak. It's a slow, aching emptiness, like living next to someone and still feeling completely alone. But here's the truth. You don't have to go on extravagant vacations or plan candlelit dinners to feel close again. You don't need grand gestures. You need something far more powerful, intentional presence. You can start small. 1 cup of tea together before bed. 1 walk around the block, no phones, just shared steps. One show you both agree to watch, even if it's just 10 minutes. What matters isn't what you do. It's that you do it together, on purpose. Rose eventually sat down with Daniel and said, I miss us. I miss the way we used to just be near each other. Can we bring some of that back? And slowly they did. It started with small things, setting out 2 mugs instead of 1, showing up in the same room after dinner instead of separate corners of the house. Little by little, they began choosing each other again, and that changed everything. So let me ask you gently, are you sharing a home with someone, but feel lonelier than if you were alone? You're not the only one, and this doesn't have to be your forever. Leave a comment if this speaks to your heart. Someone else may be feeling the exact same thing, and your words could remind them they're not forgotten. Tap like if you believe that presence is love, and share this video with someone who might need it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, a community where we honor not just years lived, but hearts that still long to connect. Because at the end of the day, it's not the years that hold a relationship together. It's the moments we choose, again and again, to be present for each other. And sometimes, it's not about what they do, it's about what they no longer say. The conversations grow shallow. The window to their heart, quietly closed. When someone stops letting you in, that's when you start to feel truly alone. You used to be the first person they ran to when they had a bad day, when their sister said something rude, or even when they were just feeling off and didn't know why. They used to tell you about their dreams, their fears, their worries in the middle of the night. And now they say nothing, not because everything is fine, but because somewhere along the way, they stopped letting you in. Let me tell you about Carol and Thomas from Sacramento, California. They've been married for 42 years. Carol always described Thomas as a quiet man with a deep heart, and he was. For most of their life together, he opened up to her in small but meaningful ways. He'd sit by the window with a coffee and say, I'm worried about work. Or, I've been thinking about mom a lot lately. But now when Carol asks, what's on your mind? Thomas says, nothing, or worse. You wouldn't understand. She hears the distance in his voice. She feels the wall, though it's invisible. And what breaks her heart the most is not what he says, it's what he no longer shares. According to the National Institute on Aging, emotional withdrawal in long-term relationships is one of the clearest signs of detachment. And for older couples, when one partner begins to internalize their emotions, refusing to share stress, sadness, or even joy, it doesn't just create isolation. It can lead to increased anxiety, decreased intimacy, and a sharp decline in emotional health for both individuals. Because let's face it, when someone stops sharing with you, they're no longer walking beside you, they're walking ahead or behind, but not together. Carol eventually realized that Thomas hadn't stopped feeling. He had just stopped feeling safe to express. Sometimes we assume that after so many years together, emotional connection should be automatic, but it's not. Like anything precious, it requires care. It needs space. It needs trust. So what can we do when someone we love stops letting us in? Start by removing the pressure to fix things. Create moments that feel open instead of heavy. Instead of asking, what's wrong with you today? Try, is there something on your heart you'd like to share? Or even softer, I'm here whenever you're ready. Psychologists specializing in aging relationships suggest creating what they call emotional invitations, gentle opportunities for sharing, without expectation or urgency. Whether it's during a quiet evening walk, folding laundry side by side, or riding in the car with the music low, these small windows of time can become bridges back to intimacy. And if you're the one who stopped talking, ask yourself, when did I stop believing they wanted to know my heart? Because when we shut down long enough, we begin to convince ourselves that silence is easier, but deep down we know it's not. So, let me ask you, do you miss being their safe place? Do you miss having one? If this part of the video speaks to something you've been carrying quietly, please share in the comments. Let this be a place where your voice matters again. Tap the like button if you believe that emotional connection is worth fighting for, even after decades together. And share this with someone who might need a reminder that being emotionally open isn't a weakness. It's how we build trust, love, and lasting peace. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, because here we honor not only the years behind us, but the love still possible ahead. Because love doesn't end when the words run out. It ends when we stop trying to be known. And finally, perhaps the most painful silence of all, not the silence in the room, but the silence in your defense, when someone once stood beside you, and now they look away. There's a kind of silence that hurts more than words. It's the silence that follows when someone else criticizes you, and the one person who used to defend you says nothing. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Maybe it's a daughter making a snide comment about how you always forget things. A friend making fun of how long it takes you to tell a story. A stranger talking down to you in the store. You wait hoping your partner will speak up, gently say something, anything, but they just sit there. Or worse, they laugh along. And in that moment, something inside you tightens, because love at its core is not just affection. Love protects. Let me tell you about Diane, a 70-year-old retired teacher from Austin, Texas. For most of her marriage, she felt proud to know that her husband Carl had her back. When someone dismissed her, he would speak up. When she doubted herself, he reassured her, but lately she noticed that the ground beneath her was shifting. During a dinner with friends, someone joked about how she had lost her edge since retirement. Diane smiled politely, waiting for Carl to chime in, but he didn't. He just kept sipping his drink. Later that night, she asked him why he didn't say something. He shrugged and said, "It was just a joke. You're too sensitive." And that was the moment Diane realized she wasn't just disappointed, she felt abandoned. According to a 2022 study by the Gerontology Institute of America, emotional validation in later life relationships plays a critical role in cognitive resilience and psychological well-being. Partners who regularly defend and affirm each other, especially in social situations, report higher rates of life satisfaction, mutual trust, and lower levels of depression. Because at this stage of life, when so much in the world feels uncertain, we look to our partner not just for love, but for protection, for the quiet reassurance that we still matter in their eyes. When that protection disappears, it leaves us exposed, not just to the opinions of others, but to the painful possibility that we no longer matter to the person who once stood by us. But here's what you need to hear. You are not asking for too much by wanting to feel supported. You are not overreacting. You are asking to be respected. And that is not only fair, it is fundamental. So how do we begin to heal when the one who once defended us now leaves us unshielded? Start with gentle truth, not blame, not shame, just truth. You can say, "When others speak down to me and you stay silent, it hurts more than their words. I don't need you to fight for me. I just need to know that you're still in my corner." Psychologists call this restorative communication, speaking not to accuse, but to repair. It opens the door for empathy instead of defensiveness. And it reminds your partner that you are still a team, even when the world feels heavy. And if you're watching this and realizing that you have stopped defending the one you love, it's not too late to return to them. Sometimes love isn't lost. It's just forgotten. And it only takes one moment of courage to say, "I should have said something. And I'm sorry. I still choose you." Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt small in a room full of people because the one person who could have protected your dignity stayed quiet? If you've ever held that kind of pain in your heart, leave a comment. Let us hold that moment with you. Tap the like button if you believe love should stand beside you, not hide behind silence. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that they deserve to be valued, not just in private, but in public too. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, a place where real love, real life, and real healing are honored at every stage of life. Because love, real love, doesn't stay quiet when your heart is hurting. It speaks up, it shows up, and it stays with you, even when the room gets loud. If you've made it to the end of this video, I want to gently say, thank you. We've talked about 6 quiet signs that someone may be pulling away emotionally, from no longer defending you, to losing curiosity, to spending time apart without even noticing. And maybe as you listened, you saw yourself in these stories. Maybe you felt a small ache of recognition. Maybe more than one sign rang true. If so, please hear this. You are not alone. Many of us reach a stage in life where everything looks fine on the outside. The house is still warm, the calendar still full, the routine still intact, but inside something feels missing, something quietly aching. But here's the truth. You are still worthy of being chosen, not just once, long ago, but every single day. You deserve a love that listens, a presence that stays, a partner who still sees you, not as an obligation, but as a blessing. So what happens now? Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's one small change in the way you show up, or ask someone else to. Maybe it's the courage to say, "I miss being close to you." And maybe, just maybe, it's the beginning of something new, even now. Because we are never too old to feel connected, never too late to speak our truth, and never too far gone to be loved, fully, kindly, and with presence. If this video touched something inside you, please like it, Share it with someone who might need to hear these words, and leave a comment below to tell us what part of this story spoke to you most. Your voice matters here. Your story belongs. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe to Golden Wise Elders. This is a place where your experience is honored, where healing begins with honesty, and where we walk this journey, not alone, but together. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, take gentle care of your heart. And remember, you are not here to feel invisible. You are here to be deeply seen and fully loved.